We're quickly going to go over patch 10.2 and see how it goes. We're going to see just how the game is changing with the first balance changes Riot is willing to put in. We're starting off with Aphelios, who's getting nerfed down a bit to bring him back in line with other AD carries. What I'm immediately seeing from these number changes is it largely won't affect him in the early game. For the Crescendum changes, the Severum changes also will largely not affect him because they are only reducing the Q damage and not really by that much. 0.05 bonus attack damage is very insignificant. So the Calibrum changes are the only ones that really are of relevance here. Of these, we're looking at a pretty sharp decrease in the mark damage, which really hurts his ability to do those insane cross-screen one-shot combos. But I largely don't think this is going to change his viability. I think he'll still be strong, just not quite as overpowering as he was. So Draven is only getting a slight buff to his ultimate in late game. The mid game, this isn't really affecting. I don't think this affects Draven's balance state in pretty much any way. If you like playing Draven, he's still good, in solo queue at least. If you don't like playing Draven, this doesn't change him. So next, Jinx is getting excited off of epic monsters. This helps a ton in the current game state. I love this change. It's going to make Jinx incredibly strong on dragons, and I mean, I'm really expecting that Jinx might make a bit of a comeback with this change. Dragon fights are so integral to the game right now, and being stronger in dragon fights, having the potential to snowball, it's really going to help her out. Karma was fairly decent before this. It's only a small buff to her Q damage and her W damage. I would say she was already fine. It maybe helps out solo lane Karma a tiny bit, but really the conditions for solo lane Karma to be good aren't really related to Karma's direct power herself, but rather they're dependent on the meta that the game is in. And I don't quite think it's there right now. That being said, support Karma might see a bit of a resurgence. I really think enchanters and mages in the support role are really being overlooked right now, and as Riot continues to nerf down things like Nautilus and Leona, I expect that we're going to see pro play and solo queue develop more and more into enchanters and mages in the bot lane. So next we have Lulu. Actually, speaking of her, she's getting a tiny bit of armor and AD. This isn't really relevant, this is just rounding out the numbers. The help picks change does help her a lot though in the in lane phase. For the E-poke and the lower cooldown on shields, you might get off a second E now in a team fight that you wouldn't have gotten off otherwise. So this could potentially be a big amount of power added to her kit. I think these Lulu changes might bring her a bit more in line with the recent Nami buffs we saw. And I really think we're positioning for a enchanter based meta in bot lane. So Nautilus is just losing 10 damage on his Q. This doesn't really affect his combo in almost any way. We're going to see a small win rate decrease from this, but it's really not changing the situation as Nautilus was good. Qiyana's losing some attack speed. This affects her in some melee matchups in mid lane. It affects her jungle clear, obviously, but her attack speed on W wasn't really why she was strong. It's due to the guarantee of CC that she has, and that's still completely existent in both mid and jungle. I don't expect this change removes her from the meta in any way. I don't think it's really going to impact her other than just make her feel a bit worse to play. I don't like this direction as a nerf. I think that she needs nerfs, but this isn't where to do it. So Sona is getting more move speed for herself, and I don't really think this is what she needs either. Again, we're looking at another enchanter buff. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think this changes her place in the game. Maybe we'll see Sona being a bit better, but really the nerfs they did to her Q, her W over the last year or so, those are definitely going to hold her back more so than the other enchanters. Then Thresh, what do we have on Thresh? We have a bug fix. This does nothing, VFX, nothing, VFX. Okay, Thresh changes are literally nothing. So next, Trundle. Trundle gets a lot more move speed from his W, and a 5% stronger slow. So the slow helps a small amount. I don't think it's that impactful. The W buff, on the other hand, is 10% more move speed on rank 1, which is what you're going to have. And this actually helps a ton in 1v1s in both top lane and jungle. I don't want to be too optimistic, but I'm expecting that we might start seeing some Trundle top lane picks into certain matchup. I'm very doubtful we're going to see Trundle in the jungle, to be honest, because it's not really a tank jungle meta right now. We're very much so in a gank jungle meta. So this Viktor change is great. They're just fixing the bug, which was making it so he got lower mana once he upgraded Hex Core. I mean, there's nothing else to it, it's just a bug fix. It will make him a bit better, but it's really only like an extra spellcaster too. It's not going to be that significant. The Ziggs changes. The Q buff will help a small amount, but really, he already had the AP thresholds to one-shot waves. This doesn't matter that much. The W change is huge because it lets him knock through an extra mine or two on the minefield with W combo, and it also gives him a bit more self-peel. This is one of the biggest changes of the patch, to be honest with you. And I'm expecting Ziggs not to come back, but maybe we'll see a couple picks of Ziggs in AD carry. And if you want to play him in mid, he's going to be a bit better in the lane than he was before. I still don't think that poke mages are really what's called for right now. With Syndra being strong as she is right now, and her currently being disabled in pro play, we're going to see if Ziggs is used as a situational counter, because she tends to struggle against poke mages. So we might see a bit of Ziggs, but I really don't know about that one. The slow buff on the E helps a lot for kiting, but again, I don't expect it to be super impactful. So the Cloak of Agility nerf, this just takes away a abusive build on a couple champions where you can stack Cloaks of Agility and it would be better than building normal items. It kind of went against the sense of other builds where the most gold efficient always used to be finishing items. Thankfully it didn't catch on as much as it could have, but I mean, I'm glad they're making this change. I just wish they never made the change in the first place. For Frozenheart, we have 10 more armor. Sure, it's nice. I don't think it really changes the viability of the item. You're still going to see it on like 2 or 3 champions, really no one else. It's still not the equal of such an item like Randuin's on most tanks. That being said, Ryze might pick it up in some cases, but again, Righteous Glory is likely going to be better a lot of the time due to having health. So we have Stormrazor getting a small nerf. It's only 5 AD being taken away. This doesn't really change the power of the item. That being said, some other changes of the champions that tended to use Stormrazor like Caitlyn in this patch are going to make us probably see it a small amount less, but Stormrazor really is still a very strong item, and I fully suggest most crit AD carries to rush it. So we have Rift Herald being a bit easier to take now, well, pretty much the entire game, but especially when it's higher in level. This doesn't really affect things that much, but it speeds it up by a good 10 seconds or so on some champions, depending on how many people you have hitting it and what champion you're trying to do it on. I like this change because Rift Herald really took too long to take, but at the same time, I kind of wish that Rift Herald would do a bit less damage to towers in the early game, and maybe even a bit more in the late game, because right now it really feels like you can split push for the Rift, and honestly the split is more valuable than the Rift because you deny a tower usually, and the whole wave, or 2 waves even. So I don't think this really makes Rift in objective nearly the equal of Dragon still, but it's a bit of a push in the right direction. So these bug fixes, the only one that I really am kind of upset about is the removing Caitlyn's headshot mechanics off of attack moving from her traps. This is honestly stupid because this was a mechanic very much so that has been in the game for multiple years. People have gotten really good at using it. They've practiced it for a super long amount of time, and this would be like removing Riven's animation cancels. I know it was like a hidden power mechanic, but I don't think this is the way you remove mechanics from a champion if you want to allow them to have high skill expression. That being said, Caitlyn maybe was a bit too strong when used properly, but I feel like there are other ways they could take away from her without removing so much of the skill expression in her kit. Other than that, Sylas finally gets this E2W bug fixed, which is frankly great. And oh right, this is the other relevant one. So champion abilities and sounds are no longer randomly visible in the Fog of War. So hopefully this actually goes through like they say it will, because this has been very annoying for a very long amount of time, and I don't really know what else we can do at this point other than hope it works, because the number of times that you can see an objective being done like Baron just through fog is completely insane. And the fact that it's been in the game since the game was released pretty much means there were so many times that people knew about dragons or barons being taken with no real way that they should have known. The skins, going to copy this from LS and talk about skins a tiny bit, but I'm not really going to talk about them much. Guardians of the Sand Ryze, I don't know, certain aspects to me look like Ganondorf. Other than that, I really don't like most of these skins that much myself, but I just have to comment that this Diana skin, I'm pretty sure it looks like Mecha Soraka. I know that's not what they were going for, but you know, if I take this skin, compare it to Soraka, I feel like a lot of people are going to get confused. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say about it. Like, we have a Mecha Soraka and we call her Diana. Well, I hope that this patch rundown was useful. Anyone with questions for me, just feel free to let me know in the comments. If you liked the video or whatever, feel free to subscribe, and I mean, good luck in your climb.